Hello and welcome. This is the Tesla Powerwall mobile phone app walkthrough. So this video is going to tell you all the things you need to know about your new Tesla Powerwall. So as you can see in the top left hand corner, we've got a nice description of the actual property. So in this case, we've got our Apex Doma office based here in lovely Wilmslow. On the top left, we've got the amount of solar that's being generated right now. It's a little bit of a gloomy day, so we're only generating 0.1 of a kilowatt, but you can see that that is contributing. And as your solar varies throughout the course of the day, this figure will vary too. In our home, in this case scenario, our office, we're using 5.8 kilowatts. That's because we use fully electric heating in our scenario. In the top right hand corner, we've got our electric van that's currently plugged in, or one of the electric vans that's currently plugged in, using 7.2 kilowatts before going out on a nice day's worth of solar installation. In the bottom left-hand corner, we've got our Powerwall. Now, we've got the older version of the Powerwall 2, so it can only discharge up to 5 kilowatts. Whereas if you've got the new Powerwall 3, which is what's most likely in this scenario, that's going to discharge up to 11 kilowatts. And then you can see right at the bottom, we've got our grid input, and we're currently drawing in 7.2 kilowatts from the national grid. So as we scroll down throughout the mobile phone application, the first bar you can see there is the fact that we've got our wall connector that's offline. We're just doing a tiny little bit of maintenance on that one currently. We've then got our energy usage. So you can see here, this is the amount of energy we've used so far today. So we've used 8.4 kilowatts. And if I just jump onto the yesterday, it's probably going to give you a little bit. So you can do that by swiping left and right. So by swiping left, I can see the generation from previously. Now in the top right hand corner, you can see the time scale. So you could say, right, I want to see what I've used this month, for example. So you see in November here, we've used 563 kilowatts. If I scroll across last month, we used just over 800 kilowatts. You can see how that then breaks down. So we've got the Powerwall that's discharged to meet 242, solar at 140, and we drew in 432, predominantly from EV charging, where we've drawn in from the national grid. So if I just scroll across to a day usage from yesterday, you can see yesterday, we are in November when we record this video, so summer's going to look a little bit different. We've got 30% that was discharged from the Powerwalls, the full 13.5 kilowatts. We had 11% that was done from solar, and there you can see 59% in from the national grid. Now at the bottom we have a little nav bar, so if we select across we can see we're EV charging. So you see one of our electric vans was charging throughout the course last night. So if you have electric car charging set up as part of your Powerwall installation, you will be able to see that. The next one we've got across is what the Powerwall's done. So you can see there right at the top in blue, that's what it's discharged. And then the line below is how much it charged and when it charged. So you can see there on the far left-hand side of the graph, we've got when it charged up cheaply at night. And in the center there, you can see where it's been topped up for a nice bit of solar throughout the course of the day. And you can then see the charge levels throughout the course of yesterday. If we go across one further, you can see what solar was generated. So yesterday we generated 7.4 kilowatts. And then we can see what's been drawn in from the national grid and ultimately where that's been drawn into, depending on which tariff and what times you have elected to charge up. So if we just go backspace a second, we can see what impact that has. So you can see, again, those useful graphs there. And again, top right hand corner, we can see the time scale, so we can check what happened in the day and in the week. So this just gives you a breakdown of how much it costs based upon your actual tariff. Again, how much has been offset with solar, and any information regarding if you've had the whole home backup kick in. Now, if we just go on to the settings quickly, this is where it all gets really juicy. Right at the top there, we've got the Powerwall. And we always set ours with a backup of 20%. So in the event that our office goes out or has a power outage for any reason at all, you can see there that we've got that 20%, at least at all times, as a backup reserve. You can, by moving this bar up and down, you can select further. So if you're in a zone that's particularly prone to blackouts, you can increase that time-based control anywhere up to 100%. Bear in mind, if it says 20% backup, it will not use that 20% at all times, even if you have a load in your home. It will only use the figure that's on the right hand side. So in our case scenario, 80% of the battery would be available for use for day-to-day use, with 20% sat in reserve. Now, if you look at operational mode, firstly, we've got self-powered. So this would indicate that none of the energy from the Powerwall would be drawn in from the grid. Now, if you have a cheap nighttime rate, you're not going to want to use this. You're going to want to use time-based control. But if you've not got a cheap night rate and you just want to run on that lovely sun power, you want to click self-powered mode. But for most people, they're going to want to use time-based control. This is where they've got a nice cheap energy tariff to make the most of. Something, for example, like an EV rate, an economy 7 rate, or you may well have a heat pump as well. So we're just going to take time-based control in this scenario here, and we're now going to click on utility rate plan. Now this is going to give you all the information. You're going to be able to tell the Powerwall in real time what your cheap night rate is going to be. So if you have a look at the top, in our scenario, you can select your actual tariff, so you can edit your utility provider. You can also edit your rate plan as well. So let's say you're on Octopus Go, where you get 5 hours cheap at night. You can edit that and give that Powerwall that all-important information. Now, if you've got a seasonal tariff, it's not really the case in the UK where we have seasonal tariffs, but in the event that you did have a seasonal tariff, you can also enter seasons. So if you decide to tariff flip, for example, I know some people do where they'll flip through an example. So if they've got an EV charger and they've got a heat pump, they'll use the EV charging rate throughout the summer when it's just got one time window, but they'll flip to a heat pump in the winter where they've got cozy, for example. You can set multiple time windows throughout the course of the year, so you don't have to keep reprogramming it. So as you change your tariff, you can change that. But most people will just have no seasonality to it. They'll just have one plan that's fixed in place, like an EV tariff, for example, or Flux is another one. So we've selected that all year round. Now we've got a schedule that we want to program. So if we just click edit on this quickly, there's a nice little time sliding bar. So in our scenario, we've got nice cheap electric from midnight till about 5:30. So we select that as our off-peak rate. If you can then effectively move that up and down to be able to select it. You could then select your peak rate. So if you've got a super peak rate, you can also add that in as well. So for example, if you're on Flux, you'll have a really expensive period between 4 and 7. So the Powerwall can sometimes make decisions, if it has run out, to buy a little bit earlier on, even though it might be marginally more expensive, to avoid the super peak rate. So if you've got any different tariffs and times, you can plug them in there. The Powerwall automatically does a phase of learning. Now, when you've got your new Powerwall, this can take anything up from 2 to 3 months, where it's going to learn all the things to know about your house. So when you bake your cookies on a Tuesday night, or when you bring your family around for tea on a Sunday, it's going to learn this information, and it automatically decides how much to buy and when to buy it into your actual Powerwall. So if you've got really heavy use on a particular day, it's going to buy extra in the battery the night before if you're going to tell it it's got a nice cheap rate. And then when you're in the middle of summer, it might not charge at all, because if you've got a nice sunny day, because it can do weather forecasting, if you've got a nice sunny day the day ahead, it may well elect not to charge a great deal the night before. This is constantly going to balance itself because the Powerwall runs an algorithm. You can also set pricing, so you can say, for example, in our off-peak rate, ours is 16 pence in the office. We've actually just changed this, and this is actually 8p. So I'm going to just amend that quickly at our sell price to 0.8 pence, because that's now factually correct. So we're getting off-peak rates of 16 pence in our office. Because we're a business, unfortunately, we don't get the amazing tariffs you would get as a domestic customer, but we buy a little bit cheaper at night, and we can sell our energy back for 8 pence as well on a fixed rate. And then our peak rate is about 21 pence in our office. We've just signed ourselves in for a nice eco green. Then you must click save at the bottom to be able to save those settings in. What you've got at the bottom is grid charging. Again, you want it to be able to charge from the grid, so you're going to click yes, because you want it to be able to buy that energy in from the grid if you have a cheap rate. If you don't want it to buy in from the grid, press no. Next one down, we've got vehicle charging. So if you do have a wall connector, you can set up any of your wall connector schedule. I'll run that through in a different video, because that's all going to be relevant to anybody who's got an EV charger. We've then, next one down, we've got storm watch. So the Tesla Powerwall will look at the Met Office data. So it's going to look at if it's a yellow or red weather warning, and if you've got really, really bad weather up and coming. Essentially, if you toggle this onward, the Powerwall will automatically monitor any events that are happening, and essentially will force charge your battery up to full. So if you have a power outage, you're left with a full battery and not just 20%. So you can toggle that on and off. You can also schedule an event. So if you know you've got one up and coming, it's going to learn that. Now, it's really important that you set your address right at the bottom if you do toggle it on, so it can look at the actual weather warnings in your area. The next one, get down. Now, this is another version, essentially, of that utility rate plan we looked a second ago within the Powerwall settings. So that's just another area where we can do it. We've got phone pairing, where you want to actually link mobile phones together. We've got Wi-Fi settings, and then we've got any access. So if you want to share, your access with anybody, you can do so there. If you want to go off grid, so some people quite like the idea of the fact that they can go off grid at any point in time. You press this and you can click go off grid, but you will be limited to the maximum capacity of your Powerwall. So in this scenario, I'm not going to do that because essentially the Powerwall can only do a maximum of 5 kilowatts in our scenario. But essentially, if your overall consumption is under 11 kilowatts, if you've got the Powerwall 3, your Powerwall can essentially push you completely off grid. And some people choose to turn that off from April through to about October time to be completely reliant upon that all new renewable energy. Now, if you just have the Powerwall by itself, your infographic will be a bit different. If you've not got a wall connector, it will also be a bit different. Again, you won't be able to see the car parked in your actual garage way. If you have a Tesla, it comes up with a really cool little icon that shows you the actual car as it's being plugged in and shows you that nice little graphic in the garage that's underneath. And the more wall connectors on, the larger it extends itself out to. If you ever needed any help or support from Tesla, you can have a look at any tutorials, you can browse any support methods, and you can have a look at any owner's manuals that may well be relevant to yourself. That's everything from the Tesla Powerwall 3 video to walk you through all the things that you need to know about your brand new Powerwall. If you have any questions or queries at all regarding anything else on that mobile phone app, please feel free to get in touch with the Apex Doma team. Many thanks.